guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel. If you're new here, this is Constellation Library. So today I'm going to be doing a reflection on the 21 books that I wanted to read in 2021, whether I actually read them or if they are still on my TBR. I actually read about half of the books that I had put on this list, and it wasn't a list that was necessarily things that I already owned when I made the list. Unlike for 2022, the books that I chose for my 22 and 2022 list were things that I actually physically already owned. So that might have impeded my ability to read it, or some other reason, which I'll go into as we continue. So just gonna kind of reflect. I have my list in my notebook here, which has a cat hair on it that I don't want on it. Lord, okay. So this is one of those cute little notebook therapy Nara notebooks. I'm actually just continuing this on. I stopped using this journal about halfway through. It wasn't even halfway, I think it was April of 2021, because I read a book that was really just not at all what I thought it was going to be, and it put me in a reading slump for a while, and then I just didn't come back to it. But I started it from where I left off in April. I just ended the year, and I'm going to use it for 2022 as well, because these notebooks are not cheap and I'm not trying to only use half of it. So I have the books in here that I had initially put on my 21 and 21 TBR. And I'll just go through them real quick. I'll put a picture of the book up here for you to see it. I'm not going to hold anything up because I just organized my shelves yesterday and I'm not in the mood to disorganize them already. So what I am going to do, I'm going to tell you the book title, obviously the author, that sort of information. And then I'm going to let you know what my star rating is. I am not going to go too much into what the book was about. I'm just going to let you know, did I read it? Did I like it or not? I also plan to do another video that is inspired by Addie over at Addie Enchanted, I believe is her channel. And we are going to do something similar to what she did, where I will go through all the books I read in 2021 in like 10 minutes. It'll be a no nuance review of all the books that I read, but that is forthcoming. That'll be the next video after this one. So we're going to do this first. So there will be some overlap between the two. Anyway, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. The first book that I read from my 21 list was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I got this book when it came out. I think I was subscribed to Book of the Month still, so I got it from Book of the Month. And I actually ended up giving it 5 stars. I really liked it a lot. It spoke to me on a personal level. I know that there are lots of issues with how white this book is, for instance, as well as the fact that she lived several centuries and doesn't really seem like she ever traveled to a non-white country. If she did, I don't remember any of them. I rated it 5 stars in this journal, but I think on Goodreads I actually gave it like a 4.5 star, which I think was related to the fact that I did not enjoy the choice that was made by Schwab for the ending. So yeah, I'll have to double check, but I'll let you know what my actual rating was for it. I don't think it was a full 5. So the second book on my list was A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kimmerer, and I really enjoy the Cursebreaker series for the most part, but this book was really disappointing to me. I ended up giving it only 3 stars. It took me a while to get back into the world, and this one was really short by comparison to the other two, and it just felt like she didn't do everything she could have done with it. I was kind of just disappointed in it in general. It wrapped up really nicely, which was good, but like the stakes to me just weren't very high, and I wasn't concerned about the characters. And I mean, it was okay, it was average, I didn't hate it, but I definitely would not read it again and wouldn't probably recommend the series based solely on how this book ends it. The third book in this list was the 6th, I'm not sure, book in the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire, which is Across the Green Grass Fields. This is another one that I'm pretty sure I gave 3 stars to. it was just like a horse girl's dream. If you were a person who rode horses as a kid, still do ride horses, were into that equestrian lifestyle, you would probably enjoy this because that's like all of the characters are horses or centaurs or whatever. I did not care. I wanted to care, but I really just didn't. I wasn't interested in the world. I think that this character is brand new. I don't feel like she's in any of the other books. If she is and I'm just not remembering, please let me know. But she was just like a totally different person that we read from, and I think that that was also kind of jarring. I didn't feel a connection whatsoever to her because I had not seen her before. I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't, because it wasn't like objectively bad. I just wasn't interested in it. So it was definitely the weakest of the books that were out at the time. I do know that she is coming out with I don't know if it's the last one, but it is the most recent one. It should be out like tomorrow, I think. It's also going to be the shortest one of all of them, and they're already all novellas, so not really sure. I think it's about a character that we already know, though, so I am excited for that one. But so far, 3 of 3 have been read. The next book was the one that put me in my reading slump, and that was Pier and Andessie. And I've waffled back and forth whether I want to give Pier and Andessie 1 or 2 stars. So I'll say 2 just to be nice, but I do not understand the hype for this book. I will scream that to the heavens. It just did not feel like it did anything special to me. The story was, I guess you could say that it was unique, and then I hadn't read anything like it, but like I didn't enjoy reading it. It wasn't a good time for me. I feel like Susanna Clark had some sort of point that she was trying to make about like humanity, but like it was so convoluted in the presentation that I just didn't care. And I liked the main character, but I hated the way the book was written. And it took me so long to get through this, y'all. Like I read this book I feel like I read it for a month, but I think it was when I looked at Goodreads to see how long it took me, it was only like 2 weeks that it took me to read it, but I really feel like I read it for the entire month. And it was just disappointing all around. I heard good things, and it just, to me, it was not good. So I would certainly not recommend it to anybody, but you'll see on Goodreads there are many, many, many more people who thought this was the bee's knees, and I guess they're just better than me because I did not get it. But 4 of 4 had been read. The next one, number 5 in my 21 list, is Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty. I did read this one as well, and initially I gave it 5 stars, but upon some reflection, I've gone back and edited that review to 4 stars because while I really like enjoyed reading it, it was like a kind of a morbid train wreck sort of thing. Like you're reading about death, decay, and then what we do with the bodies afterwards. So it was like interesting in that sort of morbid or macabre way. I do think that the author was very distant from emotions, which I guess to an extent you probably would need to be. I don't know. I just don't really know how to feel. I think I actually left it as 5 stars because I didn't feel right taking a star away when rating a book about somebody's actual life experience. I think that's actually what I did. But like enjoyment level was not quite 5 stars. But I wouldn't deduct because somebody's telling me the story of their life. Like how can I judge the goodness of that, I guess. So the 6th is the first one that I did not read, and that is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I think I started this book and maybe got like 20 or 30 pages in, but it just, like the pages were like Bible pages, and it was a huge book, and I had never read Aragon. I hadn't read any of that series, and while it sounded really interesting to me, it sounded essentially just like Aragon set in space. So from what I understand about Aragon, it's your main character like finds a dragon in an egg or something, and because of this contact with this dragon, the story unfolds. And in this, it's a first contact with an alien, and I don't know if she finds an object or what, but I think that there's like a first contact with an alien and then the story unfolds. So I feel like it's basically the same thing just in space with aliens. And maybe I'm wrong because I haven't read either one, but based on like the premise and what I was told about it alone, I'm just like, this sounds like the same thing. But let me know in the comments if you've read it, if you liked it, if I'm way off. I would like to know, but I did not read that one. So that is the first one that I have not read. The next one on the list was number 7, and that was Paper Girls Volume 6 by Brian K. Vaughan, I believe. And I gave this one either 3.5 or 4 stars, I think. I don't really remember exactly, because what I wrote in here at the time, I have since edited in Goodreads. So I will try to update that so you can actually see what my final rating was on it. I thought it was a really good ending to a series. It's the last volume in the series, and I just think that it wraps everything up really well. It doesn't tie everything in a nice, neat little bow, but it does really have a satisfactory ending. So I'm happy with it. Did it blow me out of the water? No, but it was still very enjoyable, and I would probably reread the series again. Book number 8 is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I did not read this one. I was initially super interested in it. It's not very long, but I think that I let some people get to me talking about how it, like, just didn't handle the whole overarching topic of the story all that well. Like, it deals with suicide, but it doesn't deal with it very well. It's like very preachy. I don't know. My husband's walking around upstairs. It was super distracting to me for a second. But anyway, yeah, so I hadn't read it yet. I do still want to, but I just needed, like, I guess some time after hearing some of the negative reviews to decide, like, how invested I was in it, because I still am interested, but just not right now, I guess. Book number 9 is Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I did not read this one either, and that was partially due to the fact that I did not own it when I put it on this list, and I could not decide what version of this book I wanted. Could not decide if I wanted it in hardback or paperback. I could not decide if I wanted a particular paperback cover, if I wanted the one from the UK, if I wanted one of the many from the US. Like, I just couldn't make a damn decision about it. So I just didn't, and then I never bought it. But that was the reason why. Now I have it. I got the hardcover edition for Christmas, and it is one that I desperately want to get to in 2022. I did not put it on my 22 owned books in 2022 because I didn't have it at the time when I made the video. But yeah, I'm definitely very hopeful that I'll be able to get to that one because it is high on my priority list. But alas, it did not make the list of read books for 2021. The 10th book is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. I DNF'd this one, which is sad because I really did enjoy the Poppy War, but this was just slow for one, which normally isn't a problem for me, but I just felt like it was unnecessarily slow. The characters were pretty unlikable. Najah is the only character in this one that I gave a shit about, and if you know, you know. But like, I do not like Rin. She is just, I'm sorry, I'm trying to prop my feet up, but it's gonna make you shake. She's just insufferable, and I think she's supposed to be, like, I think that's the point, but I just, Sherlock, you're too big for this. I just could not get past her bad attitude and her decision making and just the overall depressingness of the story, I guess. Like, I've read Grimdark. I understand that it's depressing, and I think this honestly kind of falls under that, particularly like the premise of the series, especially the premise of the Poppy War, like that battle. So like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, I don't know, I wasn't in the headspace for it, and more than anything, I just don't care about the characters, and I don't care about what happens to them past the first book. So probably never gonna go back to that one. It was definitely a DNF. I don't rate DNFs because I don't think that's fair. So yeah, that one didn't happen. The next one is Monstrous Volume 5, War Child. Now, I feel like I read this, but I didn't mark it in here that I read it, and I have pretty much no memory of whether I actually read it or not. So there's that. I can't really say. I'm just gonna go err on the side of I didn't read it, because if I did and I still don't remember it, then clearly I need to reread it again. And that isn't anything necessarily against the story itself, other than I have been waiting on these and getting them as they come out each year. And I think I forget a little bit of the story between that time. And it's a little bit complicated to follow in that fashion if you're reading it that spaced apart. So this one's a question mark. I don't remember if I read it, but I'll say no, just for the purposes of this video. The next book would be the 12th book, and that is Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. And I did read this one, and I did give it 5 stars because the Nevermore series is my favorite middle grade series of all time. And I absolutely adored this one. It was just a lot darker than I expected it to be. Like, the premise was really kind of screwed up when you get to like the big climactic scene, and like the thing that's happening in this one is really screwed up. And pretty dark, and I'm not sure if it would be fully realized to kids in the age group that read this how messed up it is, but it kind of like made me think a lot, and I just felt like the author does a really great job with her villain. I love Ezra Squall. I've talked about this before. I think that he is a really awesome villain because he's not just straight up evil. There are aspects of him that are sympathetic, and you just wonder how he got where he is, because he wasn't always evil. Whereas like Voldemort, for instance, was always just evil for no reason. So that book I really liked a lot. And that was number 12. So we'll get to the end and then I'll recount how many of them I actually read. The next one is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I did not read that one. That one I had a copy of, and I think I started it, and I just wasn't in the mood at the time that I started it, so I put it back down. I want to read it because I know I'm going to like it, but I wasn't in a headspace for it, so didn't read that one. The next one was Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I did not read that one either because it was big and it intimidated me, and I heard it's kind of confusing, and I just didn't feel like puzzling it out when I initially got it, but I do want to read it, and I'm planning to get the second one, so I'm not sure if I'll read it before the second one comes out, but I do plan to get the second one, and I'll read them because I enjoy Sarah J. Maas. I haven't read anything by her that I don't like. Which, to be fair, I've only read ACOTAR. I haven't read the Throne of Glass, but I have it. It's all up here. I don't know if it shows up in the camera, but I'll eventually get to all of them because I do like her work. But alas, not for 21 and 2021. The next book would be the 15th book in my list, and it is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I gave this book 4 stars. It was an audiobook that I listened to. I really super liked it. I just felt like it was fast-paced, entertaining, all of the good things, but it also had some problematic stuff that was like, girl, did you not have sensitivity readers when you wrote this? Like, I see what you were maybe attempting to do, but like, you should have used your brain before you did it, and maybe just didn't do it at all. Again, if you know, you know. As far as the writing style, she does do this sort of thing where you're like in the middle of plot and like stuff's happening, and she stops to explain some world building stuff, like info dump some world building stuff that isn't necessarily relevant to what's happening in the story, and it takes you totally out of it. It's not as bad in this book. It's super bad in the second book. Like, to the point that there were several times I just wanted to pause the audiobook and stop listening to it. Take that how you will. You can probably take it with a grain of salt, because I think, give the second book 5 stars because I really enjoyed the entire thing apart from that aspect. Like, I would have to skip ahead because I didn't give a shit about anything she was info dumping about, just to get back to the story to keep going. So, but that one was not part of this list. Just to let you know that is a thing that this one does. So that is book number 15. That page feels a lot thicker than it actually is. Book 16 I did not read, which is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. I have it still. I plan to read it. I just had not got around to it. I wasn't feeling it. I am a bit of a mood reader, even though I try to make TBRs, and sometimes I'm just not in the mood for a thing, and I don't want to try to force myself to read something when I'm not in the mood for it, because then I worry that I won't like it because of that and give an unfair rating to the author when I just should have waited 6 months and read it, and then it would have been fine. So didn't read that one. The next two I did read. So book C, six, so wait. So that was 16. Book 17 was Empire of the Vampire. Gave it 5 stars. It's my favorite book of the year. I don't really know what else to say other than that. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Book number 18 is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, another one that I gave 5 stars to. I really appreciated the premise of this story, and I loved the main character and his growth throughout the story. And I will say that there were some triggers in this one for sure. I mean, it deals with death, so just know that there are going to be lots of important types of people that die in it that you have to read. So if death is hard for you in any capacity, you probably don't want to read this one. But especially like pet death and the loss of a child and the grieving of a loss of a child and losing a spouse or a significant other, losing parents, like all of these types of losses are described in pretty descriptive ways in this book. So take care of yourself as you read it, but I do think it's worth reading despite that. Book number 19 I did start, and I got like 20% of the way through before I set it down, and that was The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Haro. I will continue and finish this book. I just was not in the mood for it. It was for book club, I want to say for November, my in-person book club, and it just like, I don't know what happened. I was so jonesed, and then I started reading, and I was just like, could not stop thinking of literally anything else that I wanted to read, which was every other book that I own except that one. So kind of frustrating, but I will keep at it. I remember everything, so it isn't like I need to start it over, thankfully. And then hopefully I'll finish it this year so that I can take it off my currently reading. The next one is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. I did not read that one. The one after that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I did not read that one either. It is, again, one that I would hope to get to this year. I didn't put it on my 22 and 22 because I didn't read it this time, so I'm not trying to, like, fail it again in the second year by making a promise I can't keep. But, yeah. So, I've heard mixed things, too, about it. Like, I'm sure that I will like it, but there are some booktubers that I like who aren't 100% about it, so we'll see ultimately what it comes down to for me, if it's something that I like or not. But that's number 21. Oop. Got to the end of my list already. So yeah, those were the 21 books that I had intended to read. So if we go back a little bit here, I have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I read 10 of 21, which I feel pretty good about. That's almost half, right? Should I feel good about that? I don't know. You'll have to let me know. But at least I read half of the books that I intended to read. And I think that that is cause for celebration. Would it have been better if I'd finished them all? Yeah. But I could have not read any. So don't judge me. Okay? Anyway, yeah. So there's that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you will pick up some of these books. Please leave any kind of comments that you would like below, letting me know if you've read them, any of the ones I did read, or if you read any of the ones I didn't read, and how you feel. If I should take them off my list permanently and just not worry about them, that would be helpful, because I have way too many books I want to read in my life that I won't get through them all. So let a bitch know if there are some that aren't worth my time, and I may take them off and replace them with something better. So yeah, there's that. So if you made it to the end of the video, if you would please put a stag emoji, the deer emoji with the antlers, for Under the Whispering Door, that would be stupendous. And if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed me, please consider subscribing to my channel if you are so inclined. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one, and I hope that you have a wonderful new year. Bye!